Good morning, good morning, good morning. We are live for another episode of the Buckeye Roast here with my guy QP Ski. Q, how you doing today?
Oh man, I'm getting there. The body's adjusting. It feels like a workout, man. The first time you go, you got back pain, you're sore, you're tired. In the week, you're like, all right, 4 a.m., but I'm all right. I'm good, man. How you doing?
Pretty good, man. I feel like we're getting back into the swing of things. We got a good schedule here, working out on our pre-production. We're all ready, and we got a big show today. Ohio State starts fall camp, man. And what better way to kick off fall camp than with a special guest? Q, who do we have
Ooh.
with us today?
You may have heard of the man, the myth, the legend. They call him the real Project Pat. Bring him on in here, man. Bring my guy in here.
We got our guy Pat from Menace to Sports. Pat, how you doing?
I'm doing well, fellas. Happy to be on here with you guys and breaking down some Ohio State stuff. It should be a good show we got today.
Absolutely, man. Fall camp kicks off today. We're going to do a numbers breakdown of some of the best individual matchups we're going to see here, but we're going to get started with the news of the day. Ohio State fall camp kicks off today. I mean, I guess the question on everyone's mind is how long is Ryan Day going to make us wait for a quarterback decision? I'm going to throw the question to you guys. It seems like a foregone conclusion that Will Howard's the starter. Do you think this drags out to the third week of August like we usually see with this quarterback competition? Ryan Day usually likes to make the announcement around the third week of camp. I think last year's dragged on a little bit longer than he would have liked. Do you think Ryan Day settles his quarterback battle early in camp and announces a starter soon?
Man, Ryan Day does not do anything to help us so-called media members, make early decisions. He's gonna drag it out. He's gonna take as long as he can. I feel like this is reminiscent of last year, man. I don't think we get one early. I know, Pat, you got an idea on that. Do we get one early? You let me know.
I don't know. I don't think so. Honestly, I feel like there's so much pressure on Ryan to get this, quarterback decision right that I feel like he's going to have to take in as many reps as he, needs in fall camp to kind of assess where both Will and Devin, and hell, even Julian are at and kind of, build a case for each one. And then I think him and Chip are going to have quite a few sit downs together before they, finally choose their guy is what I would imagine. So I think it'll last a couple weeks.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think with Chip in here, is going to take his time more. Now he has somebody that really bounce his decision off that he trusts, and that, like you said, Julian saying is supposedly in this quarterback battle with the opportunity to wager for playing time here. So I think he's going to take a little bit, make some decisions. Obviously, we got some open practices, so a lot of people are going to come out with opinions over the quarterback. So, like I said, I think he's going to take his time, and we're going to really get some weeks in before we really hear some good news. But Ron. That's what I got.
I mean, you set us right up for the next question. Is Ryan Day opening himself up to the wild speculation from Hall of Fame Twitter coaches with starting fall camp with 4 open practices? You're opening it to the public. Everyone's going to have their own opinion and firmly entrench their feet in the ground on one side of this quarterback battle, and maybe multiple sides with, there might be some Lincoln stands out there, some Sand stands, Aaron Nolan truthers. Do you think that Ryan Day is looking at Ohio State like, can you do me a favor and keep these practices closed so I can make a quarterback decision without the opinions of half of Buckeye Nation running all over Twitter?
Nah, it's gonna be crazy. Well, Ryan Day, it's for knocks at the Woody. He don't like to let nothing out. He don't like to see anything. We be guessing on who's injured and playing on Saturday. So this will definitely be an interesting take of seeing with guys going to open practices. A lot reminiscent of last year where guys are coming out with different opinions.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be surprised if he even fully opens up any quarterback to kind of do too much over these next few days. I feel like it'll be because, again, he doesn't want to feel that pressure from everyone saying, oh, well, Julian's saying balled out and everyone saw it live. He's got to be the guy week one. I'd be shocked if he really opens up anything too much during these first few open practices.
I feel like even if he tries to hide and protect these guys, the speculation is going to absolutely run wild. I made the joke last night. There might be 150 new Ohio State podcasts that start tomorrow after everyone sees a single practice and they know who the quarterback should be.
so many new insiders are just born overnight. Like, yeah, you're not supposed to.
I was at practice, and then you look around, the Woody's filled with 100,000 people. You're like, well, so were they.
See, Ron, what you need to do is when you were in there for spring practice, you just duct tape a couple cameras in there that they just don't know where they just go start putting down mics, putting down pins, that we would get all the inside information.
I have those hunting cameras on different poles inside the Woody, and then I click them on the first day of fall camp, and like, damn it, they're practicing in the shoe.
Damn it, we missed out.
Like,
Did you guys see the odds for some sportsbook released odds for who Ohio State is going to be the starting quarterback for week 1? And it actually had Julian Sayin as the second highest odds behind Will Howard.
It's so funny you bring that up because I've been talking to Q about a segment that I want to do on the show called Community Crazies. We have the Ohio State Buckeye community on Twitter, and man, is that place unhinged. You see some of the craziest takes on Twitter, and I saw someone post that graphic and say, well, it's settled, Julian Sayin's the backup. And everyone's like, well, what's the source?
Yeah.
He's like, well, did you see the Vegas odds? And everybody's like, I know you're not using Vegas odds to determine who the depth chart is before we even throw a single pass in fall camp.
First of all, I don't even know if this is Vegas odds. This might be some fucking third world country odds that got leaked or something. I don't know, man, because this doesn't look like an actual sports book.
He got those odds from one of those single deck blackjack casinos.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what's crazy? Did you ever see the Ohio State, not the Ohio State, the Ohio football high school odds, where somebody would sit down and write down all the local games? They would actually have odds on high school teams and spreads.
It's so funny because my uncle used to coach. He was an assistant for St. Ignatius a few years ago, and I used to send him those odds every week. And I'd be like, all right, Jim, what is your take on this? Are you guys covering today against Mentor or something like that?
That is crazy that Vegas does have odds on certain Ohio high school football games. It's crazy to think about that. Like, there's people out in Vegas that have never seen any of these people play, but they're so degenerate that they would bet on a high school football game for kids they have no idea. They couldn't tell you a single kid on Maslin, but they got $1,000 on the rivalry game.
Hey, they just need the numbers. We don't need to know a lot. We just need the numbers to calculate.
Yeah, exactly.
My bookie said it's a lock. I pay for these picks. He doesn't miss.
He's an Ohio high school junkie. He knows this shit in and out.
Oh, man, Q, man, we had such a loaded show today. We forgot to do some housekeeping at the beginning. We got to give a shout out to our guy, Isaiah, the first person in chat. Appreciate everyone in here. If you guys are watching on Twitter, make sure you like and retweet the video. It really gives us a push on the timeline. If you're on YouTube, make sure that you're sub, like, comment, subscribe on the video. We appreciate you tuning in, and we're here all season, and our guy Pat's going to be here with us at least once a week. He's here with us on Thursday today because we got a camp preview tomorrow, or a camp review, actually. You know, we're going to have practice reports tomorrow. So we're going to have the answer to who the starting quarterback is tomorrow after one practice. So make sure that you tune in tomorrow to hear that. But Pat will be with us every Friday going forward. I want to keep it on camp. Some more questions for you. What do you want to learn from these first open practices? I know everybody has questions, things that they want to see, and questions that they're going to have for people that have been at these practices. What do you guys want to know when these practices start?
I'll start, man. The first thing I want to know is who's rolling out there at linebacker. We talked about it yesterday, and I want to see where the starters roll and how much rotations are getting with the first team reps. As we talk about personnel, and that is the marquee probably position battle besides quarterback on this team. So I want to know who's flying around. I want to know if Arvell Reese is in there, getting some first team reps. I want to see if Gabe Powers is still alive. In fact, I've been checking his Twitter, checking his Instagram, seeing he's still putting out posts, seeing if he's around the Woody. So that was my initial question when these people start going to camp, is what the linebackers looking like.
What about you, Pat?
Yeah, I mean, I think linebacker is a huge question. Not really a question mark going into the season, but just a kind of a big, like almost something that's yet to be, revealed. And we're all kind of wondering, who's going to take that next step, whether it's, Sonny Styles, CJ Hicks. There's so much unknown with those guys that we want to see, what they look like, I guess, in fall camp, and how a full off season has, got these guys ready to go for the season. And I'm excited for that. I'm also I'm excited to see the wide receiver rotation a little bit. I know obviously we've got, all the hypes around Jeremiah Smith and Emeka, Carnell Tate, but where does Brandon Inniss slide into that rotation? Is Jaden Ballard going to get any looks? I'm curious to see what the wide receiver rotations look like during these first, few days of fall camp, and kind of see, especially for Brandon Inniss, man, I'm really curious about what his role is going to be in the offense, because I think he's too talented to not find a way to get him touches. So I'm curious if we'll see any sort of indication on what his role is going to be early on.
Yeah, man, I'm right there with Pat. I can't wait to see Brandon Inniss get a healthy camp. We know he was banged up a little bit during spring camp, so to see him back out there healthy, the only 5-star signed in the Big Ten in his recruiting class. It's a guy that has promise, and he's here for a reason. He was one of the best wide receivers in one of the most loaded wide receiver classes we've ever seen in recruiting. So to see him out there healthy is going to be huge this year. But I'm excited to see a couple things. Which one do we see first? Do we see an appearance of the jack position, or does Caleb Downs play running back first? Like, which one do we see at practice? Like Caleb Downs taking handoffs, or like the vaunted jack position make its return? We've heard about it for years. It feels like before the jack, it was the bullet every year. Are we going to see the bullet at Ohio State? Is it going to be back? Are we going to have a hybrid player out there? Which one do you think we're more likely to see? Are we going to see a jack appearance, or are we going to see Caleb Downs taking handoffs?
Well, Ron, Pat, if I have a take on this, I know one of these things is real, and that's Caleb Downs. He's actually a real person. He's out there in practice. So if I'm taking one, I'm betting on the real thing that I've seen before. Caleb Downs going in and running back, say, "Hey, Quinshawn, hold my water. I'm gonna go in there and show them what's good." So I would go with him before I go with the vaunted jack position.
I'm gonna agree with you there, honestly, because another thing is that, Ryan Day is Michigan's so far in his head that there were reports coming out about Will Johnson getting reps on offense, and he was like, you know what? Caleb Downs is getting running back touches now. We're going to put our most electric player on the ball, something like that. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Caleb Downs trot out there for a couple snaps on offense.
That's too funny.
Yeah, man. So I feel like that's going to be one of the hottest topics around Ohio State fans this year is how long are they going to keep this Caleb Downs running back conversation going? Because I just find it hilarious. And I mean, I think they're saying it to Caleb Downs to keep him happy. But I feel like when a third running back's coming in the game, it's going to be James Peoples. And after that, we're going to be learning the name of one of the walk-ons and talking about how he needs a scholarship. He's going to be the next cult hero. Why isn't that guy on scholarship? When they reduced the walk-ons down to 105, they're like, give him a scholarship. So I feel like we're going to have a new Buckeye superstar in the running back room once we see whichever walk-on decides to crack that rotation with how thin that room has become. A lot of new faces in the Woody for fall camp this year. I have a question for you boys. Which new arrival at Ohio State needs to have the biggest camp for Ohio State to be successful? And I know when you first hear that question, you probably think, well, duh, Will Howard. But there are so many new faces inside the Woody that could have an impact on this season. Chip Kelly, Coach Locke, Caleb Downs, Seth McLaughlin at center. So many people in key positions, despite all of the returning production on this team, there are still a lot of new faces in Columbus this fall. Who do you guys think it's most important have a great camp for the success of the Buckeyes?
Yeah, you're right, Ron. When we started thinking about this, there's just so many ways to take it. I mean, Chip Kelly taking the offense away from Ryan Day, Seth McLaughlin on the offensive line. So I will take one to leave you a lot. I'll take Seth McLaughlin on his offensive line. If you can ensure the center position is good, you ensure he plays at a high level. Right guard is really the only other position that you'll need to worry about. And as we hear, there's a couple guys battling for it that we kind of trust have gotten playing time or are extremely talented. So I'm going to go with Seth McLaughlin at center. If he can solidify that down, that's the left tackle, the left guard, the center position, and the right tackle that you know what you have coming back. So I'm right there with him. If he can perform, this offensive line get going, this is going to be a really good team come this fall.
What is your guys' level of confidence that he has overcome his yips when it comes to snapping the ball? Or do you think that's something that will make an appearance at Ohio State this year?
I want to see him. I want to see him go a couple games before I feel more confident that, he's gotten rid of that. Cause I feel like in practice, it's one thing, but to go out in a game and do it is another thing. So, 2-3 games in, I feel like we'll have a good idea about whether he's, lost the yips or whatever, but it honestly, or it might, not show itself until the Oregon game. Cause that'll be the first real test for him in that, bright spotlight.
I'm feeling pretty confident from what I heard, and this is just Twitter or whatever, but it was really just the Michigan game that he just started throwing the ball all over the place. I heard he was really solid last season for the most part and a good player. So I'm just hoping it's a one-off. I'm hoping that's a thing. So we really don't have to worry about it till week 12.
That's are you on time all year?
Are you on the bandwagon that this is a 3-game regular season schedule?
Yes, I am very on that bandwagon. If he doesn't mess it up in 3 games, we will be all right.
Pat, who do you have as the most important new face for spring this year?
Honestly, I'm going with Coach Locke because I want to see how he's got that running back room, motivated and, ready to kind of lead the offense this year because, all the talk is that it's the best running back room in the country, this and that, the best tandem. But what does Locke bring to that room? Because if he can elevate them, then I think the offense is unstoppable. And I'm curious to see, what the offense looks like with those 2 backs, potentially in the backfield together at the same time. I'm curious if we'll see that at all. And I guess kind of the 2 go hand in hand, Locke and Quinshon. I want to see how Quinshon looks in the offense. I want to see how he does, as a pass catcher, as well as, how he looks in space and lining up alongside Travion in 2-back sets. I think will be really interesting to see if they employ any of that early on. So those are the 2, I guess, that I'm kind of focused in on so far.
I'm going to go with a different answer than you guys. I think it's Chip Kelly. I feel like what Chip Kelly provides to this program can't be understated, and I feel like we're going to see that in the camp. The lift that he provides for Ryan Day, not only in just the fact that he has someone that he can trust and can let go of the reins around the offense and be more present around the entire team. I think that's going to be a huge lift. And his ability to transform this run game, make it more exciting, add some more confusion, whether that's through motion, whether that's through tempo. I feel like he's going to add a new element to the offense and then solidifying the run game as far as just making sure these offensive linemen understand their assignments, the running backs know their reads, and they really get this run game going. You've seen the success that Justin Fry and Chip Kelly had together running the ball at UCLA, and you hope that those 2 can come together and bring that same level of success to Ohio State. So I really think it's imperative for Chip to have a big spring and let Ryan Day really get comfortable in that CEO and take a more 360 view of the program as we enter fall camp, especially with a lot on his plate. It's a quarterback decision coming up. But we heard Chip Kelly say that he trusts Ryan Day say he trusts Chip Kelly with his life. If he trusts Chip with his life, does he trust him with his quarterback decision this year? Is this a Chip call? What do you guys think there?
Well, I'll say, let me piggyback off that, what you just talked about. We had a reel going on Instagram. So if you're not tapped in, Best Damn Beat on Instagram, or some of our shorts go over there of segments from the show. Yeah, Chip Kelly really with the point spread that he's put out over his coaching career. If he could do any type of that at Ohio State, you're looking at the #1 defense and one of the best offenses in the nation, which is room for, we should be in a natty competing for it and try to win it. So I'm with you there. As far as his quarterback battle goes and making a decision, I believe Chip Kelly is going to get a lot of trust. We had the infamous poll, the infamous tracking of who was performing better last year coming out of camp. I believe Chip Kelly walks in there and Ryan Day is going to trust his ability to make a decision of a starting player and really respect it. So I think that helps a lot. And that's a big, big key going into the season.
Absolutely. I think it helps too that both, Will and Devin Brown have shown that, their ability to run the football. And I think that's going to be exciting for Chip Kelly and something that he'll monitor real closely, I think, in this offense is, all right, not only how do they line up as passers, but also who runs the ball and who runs the ball more efficiently. I think that'll play a big impact in what Chip wants to see in this offense, just because he's such a run-heavy coordinator. And I think, that'll play a big impact in what his say is in the quarterback. It'll be interesting to see, though, if ultimately does how much influence will Chip have in the decision at who's going to be the starting quarterback? Because I don't know. There's a part of me that's like, there's so much pressure on Ryan to redeem himself from last year that he's not going to leave it up to other people. I don't know, but
maybe he has a scapegoat though. Like if we pick the wrong quarterback, man, Chip was wild and I wanted the other guy.
Ooh, I should have left him at UCLA.
Brought him in here to be a scapegoat. I told you I trust him with my life, and look what he did with it. He left me out here trying to fire me now.
Oh man,
it's the plan all along.
So with camp kicking off today, it happens every year, whether it be spring or fall camp. Someone ends up becoming a cult hero of this guy must play. He's so good. Why isn't he playing? We have so much returning production. There's not many non-household names at this point around this team that we're going to likely see play. So a little bit of a tougher question for you guys. Who's the sleeper that everyone's going to be talking about that is maybe a year away from playing, but they're going to be turning heads at camp and they're going to be exciting the fans in these next couple days in these early practices? Someone in the chat said CJ Higgs. I don't know if that's really a sleeper, especially anyone that watches this channel. I think he might be the most used person on graphics behind Jeremiah Smith on this channel. So we're quite familiar with CJ Higgs. So I don't know if we can call him a sleeper here. Ryan Day and the staff might be able to call him a sleeper with his lack of playing time. But around here, CJ is a well-known commodity. Q, who do you have as your sleeper pick from camp?
Oh man, I'm really stuck between two here. I'm stuck between two, and I'm on pressure because my pick last year really fed families going into last.
Where did he get drafted?
It really did. There's two guys here that I'm looking to, and hopefully I don't take one of you guys. But on offense, my answer would be G. Scott. This is a guy who he's been around for a while. It's going into his fourth year now. We've heard good things. We heard he's talented. We heard he can really play. So I'm looking at G. Scott as like, okay, Coach Key, you got a job here. Maybe Jelani's not ready yet. G. Scott is the guy who's been here. You got to get him going to perform. And if NCAA 25 is any prediction of the future,
I was just about to say, bro, you haven't even played the game. I wasn't even sure if you knew about it. If G. Scott's half the tight end that he is on College Football 25, bro, people are going to be talking about Brock Bowers who. Because if G. Scott comes out there looking like the way he looked like on College Football 25, they're going to be like, is Ohio State tight end you? Look what they did with this wide receiver. Best tight end in the country. I think that might be a little ambitious asking for that level of production, but I definitely do think G can be a weapon in this offense this year. Pat, what about you? Who do you got as a sleeper?
Honestly, I'm going to go with Josh Fryer, and I don't know if it counts as a sleeper. But I think more so we're going to see a lot of improvement from what I've heard and read, this offseason is that he's been one of the major improvements on the offensive side of the ball. So I'm excited to see, if those rumors are true and if he could really step up and be a catalyst in this offensive line for the season. And, how much of his struggles last year were due to Kyle McCord at quarterback. And now with a mobile quarterback, whether it be Will or Devin, will those kind of struggles seem to go away? And has he really put in all that effort into improving, his game in the offseason? And if so, I mean, you're looking at an O-line that could be, really dominant after what, many would consider to be a question mark heading into this, this fall camp. So I'm excited to see his development and growth as camp progresses. I think I don't know if you would necessarily call him a sleeper, but that would be my pick.
Okay, I like it. We have a pick from Chris Drew here in the chat. Have you guys heard of this guy? Jeremiah Smith.
He's that freshman receiver, right? That everyone's talking about.
Yeah, bro, pretty tall. I heard he's good. I think he played 7-on-7 before. I'm not sure where. Yeah. I have two picks. I couldn't decide. I mean, would it be an episode of anything on the Best Damn Media platform without some SFE propaganda? I'm not paid for. Brought to you and paid for by South Florida Express. I'm not going to go with Jeremiah Smith, but I am going to go with another SFE guy that people forget, and some people might not even know he's an SFE guy. Mylan Graham is officially on campus. Like, he is here and ready to go for fall camp. I feel like he brings a level of speed that we don't see here at Ohio State often, and I feel like Ryan Day has said multiple times, whether it be in spring or in the lead up to fall camp, that he needs guys 5 through 7 in this wide receiver rotation to step up, and he's continually reminding us that those guys need to step up and become a part of it. Is the door open for a guy like Mylan Graham, a 5-star wide receiver that has the speed to play now, to sneak into that rotation? I don't see him cracking the top 4, but is the door open for him to slide up in the depth chart before we get to spring next year and really make a fight for a starting position next year? So I feel like that's a guy to watch, and I feel like people are going to be surprised, especially because we haven't heard much from him because he wasn't here for spring camp. So I think that's going to be a guy that opens eyes. And then on the defense, I know I saw someone had it in the chat, and I'm going to go with the same thing. Our guy, Chris Reese. Arvo Reese, you know me. Give me an Ohio linebacker, and I'm riding for him. And, we have a rotation. We've talked about Cody Simon, CJ Hicks, Sonny Styles, and the talent there. But Arvo Reese, I feel like that's going to be a guy that is flying around out there and turning heads, and people are going to be clamoring for him to get on the field here soon. I think the depth at linebacker and experience that we have might keep him off the field for a year, but that's going to be a star for years to come for the Buckeyes. So I think those are two guys that are going to turn heads in camp that we might not see on the field this year, but they're going to definitely be guys that people are looking for in the spring next year after the way they flash in fall camp this year.
Yeah, I agree with your take on Mylan Graham. I think that's a big one too, because of the injury history that surrounds Emeka, and the rest of these guys haven't played a full college football season. So I think that'll be huge for his development. And God forbid someone gets injured during the season. If he really shows flashes during fall camp, he could be that next guy to fill in one of those roles if one of the top 4 goes down. So I think that's a huge one in terms of offensive skill position for sure.
Absolutely, and I feel like he's going to try to make at least an attempt to throw his hat in the ring for returning duties both on kick and punt. So we seem to have Brandon Ennis at least penciled in at punt right now. I haven't really seen what they've shown on kick return, so maybe that's somewhere that he could throw his name in the hat, but definitely think they're going to find a way to get him involved, and I definitely think he's going to flash here in fall camp. So name to keep an eye on here in the future. Not sure if he'll crack the rotation this year, but definitely a contributor. I saw, again, talking about community crazies. I mean, bro just finished taking his media day picture. He's been on campus less than a month, and they're like, oh, I forgot bro was on the team. He's going to be in the transfer portal soon. And I'm like, you forgot bro was on the team because he's been in Indiana until a month ago. He hasn't been on the team. Like, bro's been committed. He hasn't even been here. You're already pushing him to the portal. Like, bro, sometimes I'm like, this place, that community, man, is something else.
Hey, we got Chris Henry Jr. coming in. He better get together quick.
Otherwise, he's all out of there.
Yeah, you better hurry up.
So we discussed a bunch of stuff from camp, but our guy Pat is our numbers guy. He's going to be around helping us with some betting numbers. He's going to help us take a more analytical look at some of our topics around here, because me and Q just be getting on here.
Yeah, I know we had the budget for that.
That's our numbers guy. So I know we've been talking about quarterback battle, quarterback. Is it a battle, guys? I think Will Howard's going to be the quarterback. Your thoughts?
Hey man, fingers crossed. I'm not doing this again. We argued for at least 90 minutes last time. I just picked the best guy. Pal, I'll leave it to you. That's all I got. I'm not doing this again.
Honestly, I mean, all signs are pointing to Will as the starter. So I think it's safe to presume that right now. Again, if Devin or even Julian really balls out in fall camp for the first few weeks and kind of opens the door for Ryan to, make a switch in his decision. But I feel like right now the way it's all playing out, it's just making it seem like Will's the guy. He went to the Manning Passing Academy. He's golfing at Ryan Day's Country Club. It's like all that.
I didn't see him throw at the Manning Academy. I heard he was there. I saw some pictures.
We got one picture. One picture. So he was there.
Our guy Cam said that they send him down there in the British costume because I throw football.
Oh, damn.
Will Howard is the presumed starter, so I figured what better way to kick off fall camp than to talk about Kyle McCord. So I figured we'd do a by the numbers comparison of who we saw last year and who's the presumed starter this year. So Pat helped us put together some statistics and rankings regarding these quarterbacks, and I just wanted to go through them with you guys here. Kyle McCord and Will Howard, does anything jump out on this graphic to you immediately? I know when I was starting to put this together, Kyle McCord #1 in the nation last year on the deep ball.
Yeah. So that ranking is actually, so it's not #1 in the nation, but it's out of the returning production from last year. So any quarterback with a draft class of 2025 or beyond, it's all the returning quarterbacks. And Kyle McCord, out of all returning quarterbacks in Power 5 last year, yes, had the best deep ball. But my thing is how much of that had to do with Marvin Harrison? Because let's be real, there's no shot that he puts up those kind of numbers without Marv last year.
And that makes me question. So you look at the next statistic there with the intermediate throws, Will significantly better. Do you think those numbers are representative of their abilities and their arm strength? Or do you think that's more of their system and the type of throws that they were asked to make last year?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think people, all that I've read and seen, have questioned Will Howard's ability to push the ball downfield. And I guess there's no denying Kyle's arm strength. I mean, he can let it fly when he needs to, but I think it's more so he had Marv at his disposal. So, I mean, those deep balls, you had a top 5 receiver and it immediately pushes those numbers up. But it is curious, though, that you said like the intermediate numbers was a massive drop off in terms of, and this is based on adjusted completion rate. I forgot to mention that too. So I think Will Howard, I guess, maybe was a little bit better because he's used to throwing those intermediate balls more because he doesn't trust his arm for deep balls. Maybe that would be the reason for that. But yeah, it was interesting to see the massive fall off between deep and intermediate from McCord last year.
Q, at first glance, what jumps out to you on this graphic?
Yeah, you touched on deep ball, which just looks like a crazy statistic when you really think about it. But the one I first looked at was the under pressure. We talked about it last season. Under pressure, and the chat was talking about it. Under pressure, Kyle really kind of cracked, and he got happy feet and wanted to really get up out of there when he got blitzed and when he got pressure. And we've heard Zach talk about this for years. Great quarterbacks are better when they're under pressure. They really make defenses pay, and that's really when your offense opens up. So that's the thing I'm looking at, where it's like, okay, if Kyle is 50 and we're getting, I don't know, it's not really 50%, but we'll move at a 50% better quarterback under pressure according to the rankings. That is something I'm looking forward to. Like, okay, cool. We're not going to be able to get blitzed. When we do, Will Howard will can pay.
Absolutely. Our guy Cam has been doing a deep dive and rewatch of last year's season, and he gave me a call the other day and said, bro, you're never going to believe it. I've been watching for 3 days all of Ohio State games, and I can't find more than 4 throws of Kyle on the run under pressure. Do you think that that's going to open up the offense this year? Because I was reading down the list of wide receiver stats last year, and he's like, you got to remember that the second and third wide receiver numbers are so much lower because Kyle was so ready to throw the ball out of bounds or give up on the play and not able to extend plays and run scramble drill and have those big explosive plays from broken plays. Do you think that that's something that Will Howard could add to this offense? You look at his numbers under pressure and under the blitz. It's no secret that Will Howard can move. Sometimes looks like old school Big Ben out there, the way he's running around at 6'5" with that big frame out there. Do you think that that's something that he can add to our offense, extending the play and allowing these wide receivers to get more yards on scramble drills?
Yeah, I would agree 200% on that. And even if, Will Howard is not a guy and it's Devin Brown, from both of these quarterbacks, you're going to get somebody who is not afraid to make things happen. I know that gets scary for Ryan Day because he wants you to stay in the structure. He wants you to take care of the ball and certain things like that. But I think with those two guys, either one it is, or if we're talking about Will Howard right now, that is something that is really going to help create openings for these wide receivers. It's going to take the pressure off running backs. They won't just key on them on the read option. I think that opens up this offense a lot. And with Chip Kelly's mastermind behind here, is he may be the most impact on this camp. I think that's scary for defenses coming in.
Absolutely. I agree. I mean, just the fact that we're going to have a mobile quarterback this year, I think is going to be so beneficial to the offense, especially with the freaks that we have at receiver this year compared to last year. I mean, not to discredit Marv or anything, more so the depth of it. Like Julian Fleming last year, not a freakish athlete at all. So you're going to throw in guys like Carnell Tate and Brandon Inniss into the mix now for a quarterback to, extend plays and allow those guys to, work, those added seconds on each play to take shots on deep balls. I think that might help Will Howard's, deep ball efficiency as well, is those broken plays based on his scramble ability. So I think, that's going to be huge for the offense. And I think that's something that we really haven't seen in a long time and we kind of forget about.
Absolutely. It looks like the chat is reading our show notes because someone was talking about how Will Howard fits what Chip Kelly likes to do on offense. How do you feel that Will Howard fits what Ohio State has traditionally liked to do under Ryan Day in the past few years to this offense? I mean, you see the deep ball numbers. You see the numbers under pressure. Do you think this is a guy that fits what Ryan Day likes to do and has the ability to make the throws necessary in Ryan Day's offense?
I think this is a guy who needs a little bit to be refined. I don't know if he was quite the Ryan Day quarterback we know, because we know Ryan Day's quarterback of throwing people open, throwing to the other hash, really putting it on a string on the deep ball and giving our wide receiver a chance. From what I see with Will Howard, I don't know if he's exactly that guy, but also too, that's what development is about. I think certainly he fits, and he's a guy who's not going to be a statue, which we remember from the early Ryan Day quarterbacks of like when they needed to get out the pocket, they did. So I think it's giving a little of what Ryan Day wants, but also giving a little of what Chip will want in this offense. Pat, where am I at?
I agree 100%. I think it'll be, one of the storylines to follow in the beginning of fall camp is how Will Howard looks as a passer. How has he developed in the off season under the Ryan Day formula? And, and your talks about Chip Kelly, I think that's huge for, whether it's Will or Devin as a starting quarterback, the offense, the ability to run the ball. I mean, Will Howard was 18th in returning quarterbacks last year in rushing yards. I think that's going to play a huge factor into this offense. So you don't necessarily need him to be that pristine passer that CJ Stroud and Justin Fields were, in the days before Honda McCord. So I think if you just get a step above the production that you saw out of Will Howard at Kansas State, just through, the development in the offseason, and you couple that with his rushing ability, I just think it takes this offense to a whole new level than what we saw last year.
Absolutely. So before we move on from this topic, honestly, I feel like we're almost at time here, so we're probably going to have to save our running back talk and make this more of a recurring segment before the season starts. We have more breakdowns to come in the next couple of weeks. We're going to break down how Ohio State running backs stack up in the Big Ten statistically. We're also going to look up how Ohio State's wide receivers and DBs stack up against the Oregon defense. Q, I want to pitch it to you. Where do you think these guys stack up statistically at the end of the season? Because while I know Will Howard is going to be entering a team with more skill positions than he had, or more skill talent than he had at Kansas State, Kyle's going into a situation with significantly less pressure. So do you think either one of these players benefit from their current position or current new home? Because I think it's a possibility that both of them see more success than they saw last year with their previous team, with Kyle not having as much pressure or expectations. And I know a lot of people say, well, wow, he's at Syracuse. What type of receivers he had? I don't know how familiar you guys are with Syracuse, but Syracuse was very active in the portal and went out and got Kyle weapons. They have their top returning wide receiver, their tight ends, one of the best tight ends in the country. Kyle was going to have weapons, and I don't know if he's going to have an OSU level defense, but he's going to have to get out there and sling the ball, and definitely with less consequence than Ohio State. I feel like if he goes out there and loses in a shootout but throws 4 touchdowns, I think people are still going to be patting him on the back at campus, while at Ohio State he was probably getting death stares. So do you think these guys are both going to benefit from their opportunity, or do you think one of them benefits more than the other with where their new position is?
Well, I say on Kyle's side, he also benefits from going against those ACC defenses. I mean, I don't know if those guys are exactly known for the vaunted defenses outside of a couple teams, but yeah, I think he'll benefit from that. But you are the paid, bought-for guy from SFE. But for Will Howard's sake, I think SFE will feed families this fall as those wide receivers are going to be able to make Will right a lot of the time. Throwing a deep ball to Jeremiah Smith, as we've seen all spring, even with the level of talent at corner we have, that guy just goes up and makes a play. That's a great safety blanket to have. And it may not be what Marv was last season, but also Jeremiah Smith, 6'4", can jump out the gym, giant hands, just coming down with one-handed catches. I mean, you have a one-on-one shot, you bet on that guy taking it. So I think the SFE boys and the rest of this Ohio State wide receiver room will benefit. And G. Scott, like I said, if he's anything off NCAA 25, just tell Will Howard to get the ball in his hands. He's going to be first in all categories. So that's where I go. I think at the end of the season when these two match up, I think Will Howard will be the guy based off Chip Kelly, this offense, and where these weapons really get him.
Pat, what about you? Who do you think benefits more from their new situation? Kyle with the lack of pressure and expectation at Syracuse that lets him play more freely, or Will Howard who gets an upgrade in weapons but has higher expectations and more pressure?
I think I'm going to go with Will Howard just because we've already seen what this guy can do with mediocre weapons at Kansas State. I mean, he won a Big 12 championship 2 years ago. I feel like that doesn't get talked about enough in terms of his role as both a leader and a quarterback. So I feel like you provide him with the weapons and tools that Ohio State has, regardless of the pressure. I mean, he's a veteran in terms of his experience in the sport now and Division I college athletics. So I feel like the pressure won't be too big. And if, he's the one that chose this role, he wouldn't have chosen if he was afraid of the pressure and failing under these circumstances. So I think he definitely benefits the most, having the weapons that he'll have around him, and also the running game that he's going to have with Quinshon and Travion. I mean, he doesn't even need to be the focal point of the offense. The focal point of the offense with Chip Kelly and the two running backs is going to be the ground game. So I feel like for that reason, he's going to be, in a better position this year. Not to, say that Kyle isn't going to be, but I just feel like the drop off in talent around Kyle could end up doing him more harm than good.
Agreed. It's definitely going to be fun to see this play out. I have some longing for Kyle McCord photos just in case he does go off at Syracuse, and we got some damaged goods here. So we got some ammo in the tuck here if Kyle ends up becoming a player at Syracuse, and it looks like the Buckeyes missed out. But I have all the faith in the world with the talent in the quarterback room that Ohio State's going to figure it out and have someone more than capable to lead this team this year. I got one more question for you guys before we get out of here. A big thank you to our guy, Pat from Menace to Sports, for joining us today. He's going to be with us weekly. It's going to be Fridays going forward, but yeah, check out Pat once a week with us here on the Buckeye Roast. Super thankful for him joining us. But one more question for you guys before we get out of here. Q brought up how broken G. Scott is in college football 25. I want to ask you guys, if we can only get one player to be as broken as they are in the game, whether that be Quinshon Judkins, G. Scott, or Caleb Downs, are both unstoppable players in the game, which one would you like to play up to their college football 25 ability to make this team as good as possible?
Oh, after what I seen the other day on the show, it's got to be Quinshon. I mean, one spin move on an HB dive, and it's a wrap. He's going, that right there is a natty in itself. So I'll take Quinshon off of what I see from the game so far.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's got that platinum spin move or whatever, the 99 overall, where he doesn't lose speed off of that. I mean, shit, I would just be spamming B if I'm Ryan Day on the playbook all season long, man. That shit is a cheat code for sure.
I'm going to go with Caleb Downs. As our guy Cam says, if Caleb Downs looks at you in that game, you either drop the ball or fumble. So if we have that level of turnover production on the defensive side of the ball, I don't see a team in this country able to beat the Buckeyes. So I'm taking the broken Caleb Downs on this defense, and I feel like that would be able to take the Buckeyes over the top this season. But I wouldn't mind seeing an OP tight end like G. Scott either. I think we couldn't go wrong either way. But that's another episode of the Buckeye Roast. I appreciate everyone for tuning in. We are here. Fall camp is here. It felt like the offseason dragged, and then boom, like that, we're already back in pads. Open practice today. Twitter Hall of Fame coaches running amok on the timeline today. Be discerning with how you consume information, with what you hear coming out of these practices. We will be back tomorrow with a full practice report for someone that will, our guy on and that'll be at the practice. He was with us last year, has been on the show multiple times, one of our recurring guests, and he's going to be here with us tomorrow for a full camp review. But Q, Pat, let the people know where they can find you.
Pat, I'll let you lead it off.
Yeah, I mean, follow on Twitter, Pat_K Hill 8. Starting to get my Twitter following back up a little bit. But yeah, other than that, follow Menace to Sports. That's where I'm spending most of my time nowadays. So, but yeah, appreciate you guys having me on.
Absolutely, and can't wait to start your betting segment. So for all of you D-gents out there that want Pat's Big Bet Weekly, make sure you're tuning in on Friday because we're going to have some picks for you guys going into the college football season. So make sure that you guys are subscribed because we're going to see Pat on this channel a lot more going forward. Q, let the people know where they can find you.
Yeah, y'all know me, man. I'm not hard to find. City Boy Quitting on Twitter. Find it Johnson on Instagram. Do not forget podcasts coming out every day on audio. So Apple, Spotify, whatever you have, leave a 5-star review. Leave some questions. We will answer those. So get those rolling in. Also, too, putting up reels on Instagram. So let's say you missed the show. You're like, yeah, what's the highlights? What's the best part of the show? Tune it over there. You can catch that real quick. But every morning here at 5 a.m. for some, 8 a.m. for others, Buckeye Roast. You know I'll be here.
If you want to find me, you can find me on Twitter at 2Ts. That's 2_TEES. You can find me here weekdays at 8 a.m. with my guy Q. You can find us Sundays for the Buckeye BS with our guys Cam and Mike. And then Saturdays on Menace for the college football pregame show. And as we said yesterday, me and Chris Drew will be back on Bleacher Report for post-game reactions this year. So make sure you download the Bleacher Report app and check us out there immediately after games for instant reactions. We appreciate you guys tuning in to this episode of the Buckeye Roast. Football is officially back. Go Bucks and OH.
Yo.
I-O.